Am I the a-hole for leaving my partner and refusing to be involved in any way, shape, or form after she stopped taking the pill and pierced our condoms to have a child? Original post. My partner has been on the pill throughout our relationship, and we've been in a bit of a battle these past few weeks over having children. I categorically said that I don't want them and started using condoms for double protection. This morning, she told me that she's pregnant, and I asked how this could happen when we'd been so careful. She admitted to coming off the pill and pursing through the condoms that we have stored. I've said that I don't want this, and that I'm not up for marrying into a relationship based on lies. She says she's keeping it, and has already told her friends, as according to her, she done the test 8 weeks ago and was keeping it quiet in the hopes that I'd change my mind. I have no idea what to do here. Help. I am in England and I am 29. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. This is stealthing and falls under conditional consent. You should read the Sexual Offences Act 2003 Section 74. If an act falls outside of the given conditions, then the act is non-consensual and goes against the consent given. You did not consent to her poking holes in the condoms and she has done something illegal. I hope you can document this via text messages and file a complaint against her. Not the a-hole. I wonder if he still has some of the condoms that had been tampered with. If so, maybe that could help make his case as well. Do not block them. Send her a text saying it was really hurtful that she went off the pill and broke the condoms without telling you. When she replies, you have it in writing. Go to police. Save backups of the texts. Reproductive coercion has been illegal in the UK since 2015. Seek out a legal counsel as soon as you can. Also, get a DNA test. She's crazy. She may very well have cheated and just lied about the condoms. That, or she says she's pregnant but isn't, hoping that he lets down his guard and do it unprotected, thus resulting in a pregnancy. Seen it happen to a few friends. I just don't understand why they don't find someone who wants a kid, instead of baby trapping someone who doesn't. Plenty of men wants kids. Find those guys and procreate. The tattoo artist that did most of my tattoos had this happen. I was getting a big piece done and was there about weekly for quite a while. He had told me that his ex was back in his life, after being broken up for a couple of months because she was 3 to 4 months pregnant with his kid from before they broke up. My memory of her was that they tried really hard to make it work for years, but were completely incompatible in every way. Trying to be supportive, I asked if he was excited, and he said, I guess so. I asked if he's going to her next OB appointment, saying that maybe he'll be excited to see the ultrasound in person. I also asked if he got to see any ultrasound photos yet. He said she hasn't had any appointments at all. She had great insurance. Interesting. I told him he needs to ask her when the next appointment is so you can plan to be there. Have a pregnancy test on hand. And if she dodges, tell her to take a pregnancy test right then and there. He'll get the truth out of her. He did this and she buckled. She said she lied about being pregnant as the only way to win him back, and was hoping to become pregnant during their makeup/back together phase. He left and never looked back. I was floored that it was true. I thought I was going to sound crazy and downright cruel at my suggestion to challenge her, but some things stank about her timing and story. Good on you for helping him dodge that bullet. Holy smokes. Now for the updates. Firstly, thanks so much for all your comments. I didn't expect this to blow up quite so much as it did. Secondly, I want to get a few things straight as people seem to be struggling with timelines. A. My partner and I were due to get married in a few short weeks. We have had many long and involved conversations during our relationship about us both wanting to remain a child-free family over the years that we have been together. Around 2 to 3 months ago, she started to appear to change their mind, which I feel insecure and unhappy about, as it is not something that I want from life, which is why I booked a vasectomy through NHS. I cannot afford to go private as money is very tight. Again, another reason I do not want children. B. She admitted to tampering with condoms and said that she'd come off the pill several weeks ago. At that point, prior to her saying that kids might be an option for her, we were still having sex and I was under the impression that we were protected as she was on a pill. I have made no secret about how I do not want kids, and she's fully aware of my reasons behind that, which I do not have to share with strangers on the internet. C. She has shown me a test and it confirms that she is pregnant. I have asked that she terminate. She has refused, and I feel the trust has gone completely from our relationship. We are now in the process of canceling the engagement, which she isn't happy with at all, and has said that I'm ruining her life. Now, for those people telling me to go to therapy, man up, or that I'm lying, it's great that you disagree with me, but I'd never tell you to attend therapy if your worldview differed to mine. That I should be at fault after my partner has lied to me, apparently for months, and that I'm a liar. Here's a few other things for you. 1. No, I do not like kids and I don't like entitled parents. I see it the same as disliking dogs, cats, or birds. That is my opinion. Not for everyone, and not all people have to tolerate your madness. My disinterest and lack of care towards them is one of the many reasons why it would be idiotic for me to be a father. 2. Those calling BS on the 21-plus wedding venue thing are just wrong. It's a stipulation of the venue we chose, nothing more and nothing less. 3. Some plain thing happened several years ago. The smoking area fiasco occurred over a year ago. Colleagues bringing their newborns into work is a continued pain and just really gets my goat, just like some people don't like Susan to eat her tuna mayo baguette. It shows a complete and utter lack of etiquette and thought by parents who are coming out in their droves to tell me how wrong I am about their decision. We'll provide updates as and when I get through all the comments. Be kind, people. Now for the full update. I spoke to a lawyer earlier today who has advised that as we are not married that I won't automatically be added to the birth certificate. Woohoo! My ex-partner can still claim that I am the biological father, but without my consent to a DNA test, isn't likely to be able to prove it, unless it is ordered by the court. But as I've been coerced into this, my lawyer thinks ex-partner and family will back down as I have evidence. The lawyer advised that I don't waive my parental rights yet, as it would indicate that I still believe the fetus could be mine. So I just have to bide my time and leave the country till this all blows over. The lawyer also suggested that I go self-employed, but didn't divulge the specifics. My ex-partner has admitted to coming off birth control and piercing the condoms, which she said she'd done around 3 months ago, as she knew I was due a vasectomy early next week and thought I'd changed my mind. She has refused to terminate, which is her right, and I've refused any involvement. Has anyone been through this before and managed not to pay out? I think I've got a pretty good case. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying I'm second-guessing having a baby with my husband after he asked for a paternity test? I, 26 female, and my husband Alex, 27 male, have been married for a year. Recently, I found out I was pregnant. This was not planned. However, ever since we got married, we have not been using protection every time we got intimate, and I am currently not on any birth control. My guess is that I'm only a few weeks along. I haven't seen a doctor yet. Anyway, I told him when he got back home from work yesterday. I personally was very happy about it because I've always wanted to be a mom. I was pretty sure I was all smiles when I told him, and I thought he would be too once he found out the news. Let me add that he's been neutral in having kids. My assumption was wrong. Immediately, he gets super upset and asks how in the heck this could happen. I explained to him that while it was sudden, we hadn't been using protection every time, so it wasn't that surprising. I thought he would have understood. For some reason, he didn't. After a few minutes of back and forth, he demanded a paternity test and told me that there was no way it was his. I was hurt and insulted. Let me be very clear that I did not and will never cheat on my husband. I have also never given him any reason for him to be suspicious about me cheating on him either. I was so taken aback that he doubted my loyalty enough to ask for a paternity test. I told him I couldn't believe he was seriously asking me for that. He said that it wasn't helping my case and that if I had nothing to hide, then I would take the test and prove my loyalty to him. I honestly can't remember all that I said, but I ended up saying something along the lines of, if you're doubting me and my loyalty so much that you think I cheated on you and got pregnant with someone else's baby, then I don't think I want one with you anymore. I don't want to be tied to someone who clearly doesn't trust me. He blew up at me and accused me of cheating once again. It was a big argument, and he said I was being crappy, dismissing his concerns and saying that asking for a paternity test was valid. In the end, I agreed to the test, but said that I stood by my words. Had to highlight that because some people are saying that I didn't agree to it when I very much did. We haven't spoken since the argument and he's currently at work. I went to my friend for advice, and she said that while he was out of line for accusing me of cheating, I shouldn't have said that to him over one of his valid concerns, and that clearly had a reason to feel that way about the situation. I cannot fathom what made him feel like I was cheating on him. I was just so hurt that he would insult me like that and accuse me of doing something so disgusting, when I thought we were supposed to have trust in each other. But am I the a-hole for saying what I did? Edit. A lot of people are suggesting he got a secret vasectomy that failed, and that did cross my mind. During the argument, I did ask if he got a vasectomy or was infertile, and that's why the baby couldn't be his. But he dismissed that, and continued saying it just couldn't be his, without providing me a solid reason. So in that regard, I have really no idea what to say. Edit 2. I feel I should elaborate on the neutral about kids part. I told him while we were still just dating that no kids was a deal breaker for me. He said that was fine, because his stance on it was that if we ever have kids, it's fine. If something happens and we don't, it's fine. I'm calling that neutral since I don't know what else to call it. So when I told him I was pregnant, I thought he would be fine with it like he said. But apparently he just changed his mind about that, and he didn't tell me. And also, I have no issues with men wanting paternity tests. I just had an issue with him blatantly accusing me of being a cheater with no solid proof to back it up along with it. Has unprotected sex, wife gets pregnant. What is the meaning of this? Not the a-hole for sure. Exactly. What did he expect to happen? A free TV? Not the a-hole. Have you considered he may be projecting? This is probably it. Had it happened to a friend, and it's exactly what we thought it was. To be honest, sounds more like a hoping he is not the dad kind of vibes. I'm not saying he's definitely cheating, but people who cheat are pretty likely to project onto their partners and accuse them of cheating, out of guilt or whatever. You don't want a baby with someone who doesn't believe he could be the father, even after having unprotected sex and no reason to assume you're cheating. And unless you two get some significant couples therapy, why would you stay with someone who believes you're cheating on him? True. I was also thinking the other possible reason is he was told he couldn't have children, or a failed vasectomy he lied about, which would make his statement "it can't be mine" make more sense. But if that was the case, he needs to come clean and tell her he had lied to her earlier, and he's still a total a-hole. The first big blow-up I had with my husband was when he accused me of cheating. I wasn't. Never have. Cheating is a personal integrity issue to me, and I'm not that kind of person. I thought he knew that. The accusations died down only to resurface later, and with an escalation in controlling behavior, isolation, emotional abuse, financial abuse, etc., etc. He mistreated our second and last child, because the first was unquestionably his with strong physical resemblance the second didn't. So the accusations started that she wasn't his. We are divorced. He's a deadbeat POS who hasn't seen our kids in 15 years. The abuse got bad. The accusations were the start. When all was said and done, his repeated infidelity came to light. The pathological level of lying. The general all-around crappiness as a human being. Wish Reddit had been a thing where people could have pointed out that he was abusing me and opened my eyes sooner. Could have saved years of psychological damage, suffering, and abuse. OP, his behavior is highly concerning. It is not a reflection of you as a person. You can't love him into trusting you. And a life walking on eggshells is not a life. If you decide to terminate, just know he will use it to character assassinate you as proof you were cheating. He will spread lies. So if you want to do it, do so. But maybe give him his precious DNA test as well. There you go, you POS. Proof the baby I will not have with you was actually yours. Too late. Last story. Am I the a-hole for breaking up with my fiancé after he told me he doesn't want children? I'm in a tough spot and could use some outside perspective. I, 28 female, have been engaged to my fiancé, 30 male, for about a year. We've been together for almost 5 years in total, and I always thought we were on the same page about major life goals. For context, I've always wanted to have children. It's been a dream of mine for as long as I can remember. When we first started dating, we discussed our future, and he seemed open to the idea of having kids someday. I never took it as a firm commitment, but it was a comforting thought. Recently, we had a deep conversation about our future, and he dropped a bombshell. He no longer wants children. He said he's considered and realized that he doesn't see himself as a father and doesn't want to take on the responsibilities that come with raising a child. This was a huge shock to me because it feels like a complete reversal of what I thought we both wanted. I tried to understand his perspective and even suggested that maybe we could consider alternatives like adopting or fostering if he felt that parenthood was something he could explore differently. But he was firm about his decision and said he's not open to changing his mind. I took some time to process everything and realized that having children is incredibly important to me, and it's something I've envisioned as a central part of my life. I'm heartbroken, but I've decided to end our engagement because I don't think I can compromise on this fundamental difference in our future goals. I feel awful about the breakup and worried that maybe I'm being unreasonable for ending a relationship over this. I know there are a lot of factors at play, and I don't want to be selfish, but I also can't ignore how deeply this impacts my own dreams and plans for the future. So, am I the a-hole for breaking up with my fiancé because he doesn't want children? You're definitely not the a-hole here. You can't compromise on something so big. It's better to know now than to dive deeper into a marriage where you'd be unhappy. Your future deserves to align with your goals, and it sounds like he's made his choice clear. Sometimes people's life goals change as they have experience with more and more of what's out there. It could be stories from coworkers or seeing things friends or family with kids have gone through, but whatever it is has changed your fiancé's mind, and that's fine for him. It's also fine for you to need to move on and find someone who does want to have kids because that is a goal of yours. I'd say no a-holes here. Good point. Fair play to him that he knew this would be a problem and was upfront with her about it. So many stories of people stringing their partners along for years until the rubber hits the road. No a-holes here. Thank you. If he doesn't want kids, you're respecting his decision instead of hoping you can bully him into kids or having an oops pregnancy. Kids or no kids is a deal breaker. You respect consent. Good luck finding your co-parent. Don't settle for someone who is meh about kids. Get a diaper changing, bottle feeding, enthusiastic about spending time with his kids kind of man. Get a man who won't call his parenting responsibilities babysitting. If he can't cook and clean, swerve. If he games for 18 hours a day, swerve. Not a-hole. You definitely made a right move. Take it from someone, me, who has always been very upfront, from day one, about not wanting kids, only for my partner to divorce me after 14 years because I thought I could change her mind. I was devastated and completely caught off guard. You are doing the most humane thing for both of you by ending it now. I applaud your courage and foresight. Update. Am I the a-hole for kicking my boyfriend out over my cat? Original story. For context, my 24 female boyfriend, 30 male, and I recently moved in together. It's something we've been talking about, and when his lease ended, he moved into my apartment. I have a cat, Millie, who is my baby girl that I've had since she was a kitten. Back when my boyfriend and I first started dating, he made a joke that if we were ever going to live together, he'd have to get rid of that cat, which I dismissed at the time. When he would come over, he would ignore Millie, making jokes about how cats are stuck up, how much she's a dog person. Again, I dismissed this, because I never acted hostile towards her, and I figured it was just a preference. When we started to get serious about moving in, he asked if I would consider giving her away, because he didn't like the idea of living with a cat. He almost laughed before realizing he was serious. I told him that under no circumstances would I get rid of my cat. I felt guilty about being unwilling to compromise, but he actually took it well, and reassured me that if she was this important to me, he'd get over it. Fast forward to last night. I don't think he realized I was in the kitchen when he came home. Millie was on the couch, and I heard him go into the room and give this sigh. But before I could call out, I heard him say, "You're so freaking worthless." It terrified me because I've never heard him speak with such malice. He sounded like a different person. It was just so cold and hostile that I panicked and rushed out there to see him looking at Millie. Here's where I might be the a-hole. I completely freaked out. I was yelling, asking what he thought was doing talking to her like that. He jumped, and I scooped Millie up and told him to leave my apartment right now. He looked so stunned and started to argue, asking where was he supposed to go. I told him that I don't care. He just needs to leave. He was pissed and said he was going for a drive and slammed the door behind him. I immediately started sobbing and holding Millie. I was shaking, and she could tell I was upset and kept cuddling me. She calmed me down, and later when he texted asking if he could come back, I said yes. I put Millie in the bedroom so we could talk. We were both a lot calmer, and I felt awful after we explained aside. I'll often call Millie little names, and he said he was just trying to be playfully mean too and misjudged his tone. But he said it felt awful that I chose a cat over him, and that he called it my apartment when it's supposed to be our place. He told me he was constantly feeling second best to Millie, who I wouldn't even consider rehoming, and I had thrown him out over an animal when he's a person. I explained to him how much he means to me, and apologized for ever making him feel like this wasn't his home. I think I might have overreacted, but I just don't know. He's my boyfriend, and she's something I kept refusing to compromise on. But I also don't believe that he just misjudged his tone. Am I the a-hole? Top comments before reading the update. Not an a-hole, and he's lying now. Don't let him gaslight you. Your cat is going to go missing someday. This. If for some reason you do continue this, make sure you have plenty of photographs of her and you as proof that she's yours, and that she's microchipped because she will end up on the streets or dropped off at a shelter. Not an a-hole. Rehome your a-hole boyfriend. You shouldn't have dismissed those earlier jokes. On a first date, you should have said something like, all jokes aside, I would never get rid of my cat. I can't BS on the worthless comment being his attempt at being playful. He is just making up excuses because you caught him. Agreed. He got caught and came up with a BS excuse. Ditch him before the cat goes missing or worse. Not an a-hole. The way a person talks about an animal or treats an animal is a good indication of the type of person they are. After all the talk about wanting to get rid of her, I could never trust him alone with her. How do I know he won't poison her, physically hurt her, or dump on the side of the road? If it was my boyfriend, he would be gone. Flat out gone. If you don't like cats/dogs, that's fine. But when you are just nasty about it, then you cross a line. Yep, if this is how he is when he thinks Opie isn't there and is his regular mood, I dread to think how he is in a bad mood. And now for the update. First of all, wow. I did not expect a flood of supportive comments, messages, and awards. I tried to respond to as many messages as I could, at least the ones that weren't wildly hateful, but I genuinely appreciated all of the kind words and concern for me and Millie. Everybody's comments were extremely eye-opening. I felt sick to my stomach reading about people afraid for Millie, and it had already crossed my mind honestly. Making that post validated all the fears that I had kept dismissing as dramatic, and it was almost a relief to be encouraged by strangers to do something I had previously been too afraid to do. So we broke up. It's my apartment. He wasn't on the lease yet, and he's going to go stay with his brother. Had to read around about gaslighting, and my sisters would agree with all of you about that one. It was hard to lose somebody I trusted and thought I knew well, but based on his reaction, I knew I made a right call. He essentially told me that if I couldn't learn to put other humans before my cat, I'd be alone for a very long time, and that he'd be waiting for me to reach out. Millie doesn't deserve to just be tolerated. She deserves to be safe and treated like the little princess she is by anybody I live with. She's seen me through so much, and I'd rather be alone than her wandering around the side of the road somewhere. And I am absolutely terrified of her ever being hurt. It isn't worth the risk. I'm okay with it being just her and I for now. Thanks everybody for the advice. When my boyfriend moved in, he babied my cats so much I'm pretty sure he was their favorite human. And I was relegated to the position of backup slave. We've since got another cat together. I could never date someone who didn't love animals. Good for you and Millie. There are better guys out there. Ow, my two cats are super babied by my boyfriend. He's their favorite person. Me, I'm just convenient when he's not around. Lol. My boyfriend kisses the top of his cats' heads. Now when they get pets from me, they present their heads for kisses sometimes. I do not deserve any one of them. I'm a dog person 100%, but I live with my significant other and his cat, and our dogs. The cat drives me crazy. He's up at 5 a.m., and for some reason he loves me more than my significant other, so he has to sit on my face in the morning. And he drools. What kind of cat drools? He also claws the furniture and screams like a tiny demon when you ignore him. Even with all that, I still love that little bastard, and I would never ask my significant other to get rid of him. He is family. He may be annoying as hell, and I'm not a cat person at all, but he's still my little floofy baby. So what I'm saying is, good for you, OP. You'll definitely find someone who will love you and your adorable cat. Cats drool just like dogs do. Sometimes when they're hot, but mostly when they're happy and excited. We've got a senior cat outside named Jack. All you have to do is talk to him a bit, and he goes gaga for potential pets and will start drooling everywhere. Yes, girl. I'm sitting here with my old man cat. I've had him for 15 years. Longer than I've had my husband. If I'd had to have gotten rid of this cat for a man, I would not get to see him spend his senior years cuddled up with my daughter who adores him. I wouldn't trade that for anything. You'll find someone that respects Miss Millie and loves her as much as you do. He essentially told me that if I couldn't learn to put other humans before my cat, I'd be alone for a very long time, and that he'd be waiting for me to reach out. Holy cow, you made a right call. I love my fiancé, but if it told me I had to choose between him or my 2 fur babies, he'd be out so freaking fast his head would spin. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for greatly increasing my husband's chores and dismissing his complaints after he called me a homemaker? Context. I work in my own startup. Husband John works in a movie theater. Before I started my company, we both had similar income, but now I earn 5 times as much as him. The chore dynamic at home was always heavily skewed. I'm very neat and like cooking, so I handled the lion's share of chores on top of my job. After the company started growing, John invested himself more in chores because he was staying at home due to movie theaters being closed. His workplace reopened a few months ago and he immediately stopped doing most chores. I have been lenient and doing more than my share since he comes home every day exhausted and complaining. After work, he does nothing but leisure, totally overlooking the fact I manage our household on top of running my company. I'm kind of a doormat sometimes, so I let it go because I want to be kind to John. But last weekend, he crossed a line. I work 7 days a week, John has weekends off, and he was playing video games all day while I was working, and he came to ask me when lunch would be ready. I told him that I am very busy with work, and can he cook for once? He declined, then complained that it was so much easier in his grandfather's time, when the homemaker didn't do anything other than her duties. I exploded. We had the biggest screaming match in our lives, with him calling himself the breadwinner of the household, repeatedly hiding behind the claim that he goes out to work, as opposed to me working from home, which means I'm a housewife, huh? I steamrolled his claims by pointing out that I earn much more money than him. I work longer hours and still do all the chores. I told him to quit his job and dedicate all of his time to chores. Since he is so enamored with the simpler times of homemakers and breadwinners, even if he became unemployed, our financial situation wouldn't change. He acted appalled. Monday, I gave him a list of chores to do, about 2 to 3 hours of chores daily. He constantly complains, and I just reply with, quit your job. I spent years doing all the chores on top of my job, but he whines at the prospect of doing just half. Tuesday night, he told me he refused to do the chores, and I couldn't force him. I shouted him down into submission, telling him that I spent our entire common life picking up the ball that keeps dropping, and that his choice to work an unskilled job for pocket change does not preclude him from helping me, the breadwinner, keep this household in shape. Yesterday, I locked up his PS5 in our safe and changed the combination. This is not in my nature. I'm usually polite and soft-spoken, and I feel like an a-hole when I see him looking like a sad puppy and whining that he is tired. But I just snapped. I feel like I don't have a choice. If I let John do nothing and consider himself the breadwinner who deserves to come home to a clean house and warm meal through no effort of his own, I would lock myself into a life of servitude. Am I an a-hole? Now for the comments. Oh my girl, you're most definitely not the a-hole. In fact, don't you dare take even the tiniest step back. Hold your ground as if your life depended on it. Edit. I would very much like to know the gender of the people who will vote either you're the a-hole or everyone sucks here. You and I both. For people saying, oh, but the way she spoke to him isn't right. Her husband is being a sexist, lazy, disrespectful pig, and quite literally trying to invalidate her success and value in the marriage. I challenge anyone who thinks she is also an a-hole to try living with a significant other like that and not changing their tune. Not the a-hole. Sounds like you've been picking up his slack for a while. How dare make claims about you being a homemaker when you're apparently bringing in the majority of the money? Working from home is work. I doubt working at the movie theater is very lucrative. Stop picking up his slack. He is being disrespectful of you, your job, and everything you do for your home. How dare he make claims about you being a homemaker when you're apparently bringing in the majority of the money? I know, right? This is exactly the thought that sent me over the metaphorical line. The answer is that, since I'm at home all day, and I get to choose my hours since I'm the boss, while he is at his workplace all day, that's all he considered. The fact I work more hours and earn a lot more money never crossed his mind, I guess. That's also how he'd justify not doing chores to himself. I concluded after thinking on it a while. He did his part by doing his job, so he expects to come home and do nothing more, since he put in his hours. The fact that he had this unspoken belief that I'm his housewife, that really grated my nerves like nothing else ever did. I hope the intimacy is amazing, because you're getting screwed. Not day home. To be honest, it is. Not day home. But why? Why are you with someone who treats you like this? This is the third post today I've seen with a similar theme. The real deep reasons would require hours with a therapist to untangle, as is often the case with human relationships. Probably a mix of childhood trauma, me being very socially awkward, sunk cost fallacy, etc, etc, etc. The concrete day-to-day reasons that were observable to me? I answered it this way in another comment. We were college sweethearts, when it doesn't matter if the other is a bit lazy or kind of a slob. He stopped at his bachelor's, while I continued all the way up to my PhD, and he supported me financially through it all. I supported him in turn for years after I graduated. We are now in the stage of adulthood where it's very hard to start dating again, and I genuinely love John. If he could step up his act, I think we could find again this stability and great synchronicity between us. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my boyfriend that his daughter can't have her own room in our house? So, my boyfriend 30 male and I 24 female have been together for 2 years, and we just bought our first house together, and we moved in at the end of the month. My boyfriend has a 4-year-old daughter, Kate, from a previous relationship. I love Kate with all of my heart. She lives with my boyfriend's ex, and comes to visit us for short stays and sleepovers, more often in the summertime. Our new house is about a 30-minute drive from Kate's mom's house. It has 3 bedrooms, a master bedroom and 2 smaller bedrooms. We are converting one of the rooms to be an office for my boyfriend and me to work from. That leaves just 1 spare bedroom. Kate was really nervous about us moving so far away, and my boyfriend has reassured her that she will still get to visit all the time, and she will have her own bedroom waiting for her whenever she wants. My issue with this is that I don't want Kate to treat the only spare bedroom as her personal bedroom. Rather, I want it to be thought of as a guest bedroom. Of course, Kate can stay there whenever she wants to. This isn't part of the debate, as I want her to feel welcome all the time. But I don't want it to be only her room. I don't want it to be filled with her toys and clothes, so nobody else feels comfortable to sleep in there. I don't think it's fair that a room is reserved for someone who is not there 90% of the time. In addition, my boyfriend and I are planning to have a child of our own, and I want to make sure that when that happens, we will have a space for them to live. I can only imagine the circus in a few years if we have to tell Kate we are taking away her room to give to her new sibling. That's why I want to set expectations now, that Kate is always welcome, but she will be welcome as a guest. My boyfriend thinks I'm being unreasonable, that Kate needs her own room for stability, especially as she feels we are moving away from her. He says we can keep a pull-out sofa in our office for guests to stay on, and call the spare room Kate's room. I still don't think it's fair to have a room just for Kate when she won't use it very often. And I think it's reasonable to be worried at the prospect of eventually giving Kate's room away to a future child. You're the a-hole. I am not surprised that you didn't discuss this beforehand, because it would be obvious to anyone with a heart that a 4-year-old is not a guest in her father's house. It is her other home. Of course she gets a room there. Seriously, you should go apologize profusely to your boyfriend and his daughter, if you have already spoken to her about this. Apparently they did, and her boyfriend made it clear he intended one of the rooms to be for Kate, but she somehow misunderstood and thought that just meant a room with a bed, minus all of her belongings, and that it would be temporary. I can't imagine how dense or heartless this woman could possibly be, to think that the father of this little girl just meant, I'll give Kate a room to sleep until someone else more important comes along to fill that room, which is what Opie here was thinking. You're the a-hole. She's a child, a 4-year-old, and you want to make sure she knows that isn't her room? Marinate on that. You want to make sure a 4-year-old isn't too comfortable or at home in her dad's home. If I were him, I'd leave you. Oh my god, I didn't even think this deep. But that is exactly what's happening. I am in awe of Opie's post. It is unbelievable. You're the a-hole. She's not a guest. She's his daughter. My stepson lives 4 hours away and we get him on school breaks and during the summer. The rest of the time his room is closed off, so the cats can't wreak havoc. It's not wasted space. It's his room. And when he comes back, he knows his Nerf guns and video games and other toys are safely awaiting him in his room. You say you want her to feel welcome, but how is she supposed to feel that when she's not even worthy of having her own space? Crap like this is why step-parents get such a bad rep. I, 27 female, screamed at my husband, 28 male, over his hobbies, and now he's changed and I don't know how to fix this. Hey everyone, I need some advice about a situation with my husband. I'm 27 female, he's 28 male, and we've been married for 4 years. He has a room where he keeps all his hobbies: sim racing, aviation setups, soccer analysis tools, Lego sets, music production equipment. Basically, it's his sanctuary. He's super analytical and loves writing down and dissecting things, from sports to politics. He's slightly on the spectrum and very introverted, so he doesn't have close friends. I'm really the only person he shares everything with. He's always inviting me into his space to be part of his interests. I love him and appreciate that he wants to include me, but sometimes I just need some time for myself. Recently, I snapped. I yelled at him, saying some hurtful things that I didn't mean, like how his interests bore me, that he needs to get his social life, and even questioned why I married him. I regret every word, but my anger got the best of me and I couldn't control it in that moment. Since then, he's completely changed. He stopped spending time in his room, moved to sleeping on a couch, and barely talks to me. He even ignored our usual tradition of watching our home nation soccer team play, something he'd never skipped before. Instead, he was working on his laptop, breaking our no work at home rule. When I asked him about it, he said he didn't care about the game and mentioned that maybe he should be more like his father, who's a workaholic and who my husband idolizes. He even added, I don't blame him for divorcing at that age now. I've apologized multiple times, but he just says, it's okay, maybe you're right, and shuts down any attempts I make to talk about his interests. I'm terrified he's considering divorce. I know I messed up, but I don't know how to rebuild trust and help him feel valued and loved again. I don't want to lose him, but I'm unsure how to approach this and make amends. Any advice? Now for the top advice. You didn't just criticize his hobbies. You degraded him, saying he needs a social life and asking why you married him. Did you even try to talk to him frankly before you snapped? Did you tell him that you needed some space? Or did you just stuff it all down until one day you screamed it all out? Instead of apologizing, I suggest that you see if he's willing to go to couples counseling with you, where y'all can work on communication and trying to move past this incident. Seriously, she literally just told him that they have nothing in common, that he is a bore to her, that they can clash on fundamental levels, like the social thing, and outwardly questioned why she married him in the first place. And now she's surprised he's thinking about divorce? Girl, you are the one who put that idea in his head, and then yelled a laundry list of valid reasons for him to leave you. Honestly, I also wonder why you got married. I hope he does get a social life. Maybe he'll meet someone he actually has something in common with. I have a relative who complained to me that her husband was forever in their garage tinkering on an old car. Apparently, he should have been inside talking to her. I asked whether she'd ever thought of going into the garage with some drinks and a chair and chatting with him and reading. She said no, and then pointed out to her that unlike her first husband, at least she knew where to find him during his leisure time. Her first had several girlfriends. She just looked at me for a minute and then stopped complaining. There is a comfortable chair in their garage now, as well as a television and a small bookshelf. I'm no hero, but 20 years later, they're still happily together. Questioning why you married him is a really awful thing to sling at someone, regardless of anger or honesty. You can talk out what you regret saying, but him pulling away is understandable. Right, I was saying there's no way one can come back from saying stuff like that. That is hurtful, and quite frankly puts off a lot of people. I wouldn't even be surprised if he chooses to move out at some point. He's already isolating himself from her, which is step 1. She broke him. It's hard for any man to come back from that. Being truly broken is the worst feeling in the world, and you just feel like you're going through the motions of every day. Every hope, dream, goal, and happiness is gone. It's what I imagine he feels like. Next story. Planning on proposing this weekend, but my 25 male girlfriend, 23 female, gave me an ultimatum to propose. Help? My girlfriend basically told me last night that if she didn't receive a ring by the end of the year, she would break up with me. The problem is, I already have a ring and was planning on proposing on her birthday this weekend. I met my girlfriend in college and we've been together for almost 3 years. This girl is my best friend and I can't imagine my life without her. I've never felt this way about anyone before. We've talked about getting married and starting a family. The thing is, I've been working on my business and trying to become financially stable to support our future family. My girlfriend knows all of this, which is the crazy part. My girlfriend doesn't have a job currently and I've been supporting both of us. This isn't a big deal for me since I'm in a position where we can afford to live like this. These past quarters, I've finally started seeing returns from my business. All the hard work I've put in over the past 4 years is starting to pay off. We're on track to have a massive year. My girlfriend has been looking at houses over the past few months, not to buy, but just to see what's out there when we're ready. Everything was set in motion. My girlfriend's birthday is this Sunday and we're having a party at our place as far as she knows. I had the entire proposal planned out with her best friend. Her best friend was going to bring her to the aquarium where we had our first date. I already talked with the aquarium staff about the proposal. They were going to play our song on the speakers and I planned to do it in front of the penguin exhibit, her favorite animal. I even hired a professional photographer. I've also already asked her parents for permission to propose. Now I'm in a bad spot. I feel like I'll lose either way. Last night, during dinner, my girlfriend suddenly broke down and started crying. I've never seen her like that before. She told me she doesn't understand why I won't marry her. She said she's been there for me since day one and told me that if I didn't propose by the end of the year, she would leave. At first, I thought maybe she had found out and was messing with me, but I know her really well. Her tears and emotions were genuine. I know her friends are getting engaged and married, and maybe she feels left out or jealous. But I don't want to propose because of an ultimatum. Now I'm not even sure if I want to go through with the proposal on Sunday. All my friends are saying you can't reward this type of behavior, but I'm not sure. I don't know if she just had a breakdown or what. This is the first time I've ever seen her this upset. Are you not sure about doing it this weekend because it will seem forced, or because you no longer are sure you want to marry her? Your answer changes my advice. Yeah, anyone who at 23 is unemployed and living on her boyfriend's dime and then throws an ultimatum about marriage is nuts, honestly. He is barely old enough to propose, and she is not old enough or mature enough to be engaged. 3 years would be a decent time to wait if they were 10 years older, but they are so young. She's lucky he didn't take out the ring and hand it to her and says he's going for a walk. She obviously hasn't discussed this ultimatum idea with her best friend either. Please don't propose this weekend. Give yourself at least a week to think about whether this is what you want for your life. Hold on to the ring. And honestly, if you do decide to propose later, you don't have to do all that fuss. Just give it to her one night after dinner. And if she is upset there's no fuss, tell her you put a lot of effort into it the first time and her ultimatum made you rethink what you wanted. If she's upset there's no fuss after that, it's one more sign maybe she isn't the one. He needs to insist that she works. There is no good reason that she doesn't, and is it good for either of them to have him financially supporting her? She needs to be gaining work experience, and she needs money to be going toward retirement. Otherwise, in 10 years, he will see half of everything he was going to her, and he will be starting over. That's a bit complicated. Because on one hand, I can understand how you'd want to put things on pause until you can sit down and have a talk about both of your feelings about marriage and engagement timelines. Ideally, it would have been better to do this before she broke down on you, but the second best time is now. On the other hand, there isn't necessarily anything about this sudden ultimatum that necessarily changes your plans. You are planning on proposing to her anyway, well within her timeline expectations, and you could always talk to her later about how you had this proposal planned well before she gave you the ultimatum. In my opinion, have a talk with her as soon as possible about each of your feelings on marriage and wedding timelines, and confirm with her that you're on the same page. Then carry on with the Sunday proposal. Oh, and let us know how it goes. It's also not as if he could throw that entire proposal together in 48 hours with a photographer and everything. And if she thinks so, he's got the receipts. Honestly, bad breakdown, worthy conversation. But not a complete deal breaker if the rest of the relationship is okay. I don't really understand why he wouldn't just tell her it was gonna happen and she shouldn't worry about it while she was crying. Why let her girlfriend got wrung out for the sake of his surprise? Now for the update. I want to thank everyone for their responses and advice. One of the questions I'm getting is why my girlfriend doesn't work. She just graduated last year with a degree in biology. Unfortunately, she's been having a difficult time finding a job because we live in a rural area. She's always there for me when I need her help with my business. Honestly, I've already told her that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to. I had a conversation with her best friend last night, and she informed me that she might have said some things to throw my girlfriend off track. I didn't tell her best friend about my girlfriend's breakdown. Since the whole thing happened, my girlfriend has been a bit distant and has been giving me the silent treatment. As of right now, I'm 80% leaning toward going through with the original plan. I still want to marry her, but the ultimatum part is bothering me. Like, how could she say she would leave after everything we've been through together? Her best friend and little sister are flying in tonight for her birthday/proposal on Sunday. Two of my closest friends, who are basically my brothers, are coming also. The ones y'all referring to as idiots. And yes, they are singles. As for why I planned a proposal on her birthday, it's because when her older sister got engaged on her birthday, she told me that's what she wanted. Regarding the ring, I've had it for 2 years already. I bought it when we went to the mall during college and she showed me her favorite ring there. I actually just finished paying off the credit card for it last month. Do I think she's actually going to leave on January 1st? No, I don't think she would actually leave. Knowing her, she might leave for the day, but she'd be right back home before it gets dark. Last story. My 40 female husband, 40 male, has been going to therapy to work on his temper and his therapist reported him to CPS. He's saying he no longer go to therapy because of this. How do I keep him engaged in the therapy needed to do the work? So me, 40 female, and my husband have been together for about 10 years, married for 5 of them. We have 1 child, 3 male. My husband has always had a short fuse, been argumentative, and struggled with managing his anger. It's taken me a long time to convince him to go to therapy. About a year ago, he finally agreed to start. However, it recently became clear that he hasn't been open and honest with his therapist, and I've continually encouraged him to be transparent so he can address his issues. For reference, he's never hit or hurt me or our son. I describe him more as a yeller, someone who tries to avoid conflict by being loud. This isn't a healthy dynamic for the home, so I've been insistent on him seeking help. In rare instances, he has thrown something, never at me or our son. One of these instances was recent, and I told him he needed to be honest with his therapist to help him understand why this is his reaction and to work on healthier responses. He had a session this week and asked to increase the frequency of his sessions. I was relieved that he was being honest and recognized the need for more than the monthly sessions he had been doing. However, today's CPS left a card on my door and wants to talk to me regarding concerning behavior with dad. Clearly, I know who made a report, and so does my husband. I've already arranged to meet with CPS. But now, the issue I'm facing is that my husband, who was already distrustful of the system and sensitive to the stigma surrounding it, has become even more distrustful. I'm also feeling frustrated because this specific incident was something I'd consider reportable. He threw my son's Play-Doh into the yard after my son played with it on the deck and refused to clean it up. I'm a PhD clinician, so I'm very familiar with the system and extremely protective of my and my son's safety and well-being. While my husband's temper is a current challenge, he has been actively taking steps to work on it. I love him very much, and I love our family. As long as he's committed to making changes, I've agreed to support him. I've made it clear, though, that I will leave if things don't improve because his temper and unpredictability aren't healthy for our home. Now, he's told me that he's going to stop going to therapy because, in his words, this is what happens when I'm honest in session. Does anyone have advice on how to keep him engaged in therapy? I'm feeling a whole host of emotions, mostly sadness that someone seeking help was reported for an anger outburst, reinforcing his distrust in the system and discouraging him from being honest in his self-work. I'm also frustrated that his therapist, who has repeatedly reminded him they're a mandated reporter, didn't feel the need to tell him they would be reporting this particular disclosure. I know it's not required, but I've always operated on that ethical principle with those I've treated. I feel like without his commitment to getting help and working on this, our marriage will fail. I'm also a PhD clinician, so you are aware that a therapist would not call CPS over some yelling. Also, if it wasn't the therapist, he threw it outside, so maybe the neighbors had enough of him flipping out and yelling at his family that they made a phone call. I mean, if he's been like this always, there are plenty of people probably worried about the kid. This is my thought too. Sounds like neighbors have heard lots of frequent yelling and the sounds of things being thrown. That would be my top bet. The kid is 3 years old. There is no reason to scream at a 3-year-old and throw his toys out in the yard. Kids this age need to be talked to in a normal voice and told what they've done wrong. Maybe he gets a timeout. This guy should not be parenting until he gets his anger under control and learns how to be a father. Yup, and to a little child, that kind of behavior tends to kick their nervous system into fight or flight. A rageful caregiver is an existential threat, and a little toddler's brain/body has no way to know that grown-up, who they rely on for basic needs and love, isn't going to physically hurt or abandon them. In fact, even for adults, dealing with someone who is raging out by yelling and throwing things can have a similar effect. It's just that with kids, the consequences tend to be much deeper as it literally shapes how their psyche and nervous system develop. But for example, in many places it is legally considered physical assault to do things like punch walls, throw objects in rage, get up in someone's face while screaming, etc. Even if you never actually hit the other person. If there is threatening behavior that would cause a reasonable fear that the person may physically attack you, that can legally be considered assault. A person's body might react to those things as imminent threats, so even if the person never hits you and only the wall, it still causes harm. Healthcare professionals are required to make referrals if there is an indication of abuse. So it might not have been the therapist who dropped the dime, if what you are saying is true about his behavior. Yes, you are correct. However, the state I'm in requires a 24-hour response to any report. The response was less than 24 hours after his appointment, and he did talk about yelling and throwing the Play-Doh. So while I am using deductive reasoning, you're correct, it could have come from anywhere. But only 3 people know of this specific incident, and my husband and I are 2 of them. And regardless if it was the therapist or not, I'm just really struggling with him dismissing therapy in response to this, rather than him seeing that this is also a product of his temper. I guess he's feeling like how can he trust someone to help him if they'll just keep turning him over to CPS. I've never really sat on both sides of this, I guess, so I'm just stuck. Am I the a-hole for having my husband fired? Can't believe I'm posting here, but here I go. I, 29 female, have an ex, 34 male, Richard. It's been 3 years since we separated due to him being abusive and cheating. But we are not divorced as divorce is expensive in my country. And whenever I apply for divorce, Richard insists on meditation. So divorce is never granted as one of us tries to save the marriage. He lives with his mistress and they have a kid together that was conceived when we were still together. Due to both of them harassing and mistreating me, I have a restraining order against both of them. My employer is aware of all of this, as the utility company my ex works for supplies the buildings their offices are at, one of the major suppliers in the country. Now to the actual events. Due to restrictions, everyone is currently working from home with a few days in the office. Richard decided to show up at my work with his kid and demanded to see me for child support money since we are still legally married. As my employer is aware of the situation, the reception refused to tell him if I'm in the office or not. I was, and asked Richard to leave. Richard did not, and security was called. As he was with his child, security couldn't use force to remove Richard. so reception threatened to call the utility company he works for. Richard didn't believe the reception can do it. So long story short, him and his mistress were fired with immediate effect, as Richard showing up at my work has been seen as gross misconduct, and they discovered Richard was his mistress's boss. Apparently his employer didn't know they were together, and it's strictly forbidden to have a relationship with someone who is directly employed by you. The utility company apologized for Richard's actions and gave a considerable discount for their services to make sure the news of what happened wouldn't spread. Since they were fired, I'm getting calls from unknown numbers of various Richards / his mistress's family members and friends, saying I'm responsible for it and just a jealous a-hole for getting them fired to get Richard back. We still have some friends in common, and they believe getting him fired and losing the only source of income they have is too harsh, and I should have prevented that / shouldn't have spoken in the beginning about what happened. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Just not to repeat myself in the comments. His family believes it's okay to have several partners and be responsible for kids even they are from an affair. And according to our mutual friends, he spreads a lie that I couldn't get pregnant. I don't want and never wanted kids. So his mistress helped us with that. But then I overreacted and called it cheating. So he had to stay with her to support the kid. It's the same as what he pulled in the court when we were getting divorced alongside with his "I still love her and should have communicated better" lies. So the court wouldn't grant a divorce, as they believe he is trying to save the marriage and I'm being unreasonable. Now for the top comments before the little update. Oh dear, this better be a joke. He asked you for child support for his adultery kid? WTF? Not stay home. Him and his family believes if the child was conceived in the marriage, the other party should accept them even if it's from adultery. They also had a go at me for separating with him due to cheating, because in their eyes, it's okay to be with several people. I'm so sorry, but why the holy name did you marry this creature? What species is it? I guess the reason was the same how everyone else got into a toxic relationship. He wasn't like that, was loving and caring. I didn't know his family's views and other issues they have until after separating from him. Before that, they seemed fairly normal. A guy you have restraining order against showed up at your job, made a scene and got fired. You're obviously not stay hall here. This is absolutely the consequence of his own actions. It doesn't seem like Opie called anyone herself, and even if she did, I'd still vote not stay home. I feel awful for her. She must have been put through a lot in that relationship for thinking even for a second this is her fault. And unfortunately, it's not over for her yet. I hope she's able to completely get away from this guy. Not stay home. It doesn't even sound like you actually had a role in any of this. Like it all went down with you unaware even. I was informed he was in the office building by my manager as he had a meeting not too far from the reception. He knew about the situation, as he gave me a lot of time off to recover from the breakup a few years back and made sure I'm okay. He knows my reaction on Richard and that his presence generally makes me feel terrified. I assume Richard possibly heard some of the staff members saying I'm in the office as they were passing by, since it seems rather strange that he knew when to show up. Edit 2. Thank you for the support. I'm getting a bit overwhelmed trying to reply to everyone, but just want to point out a few things. His family's beliefs are not normal for the country, and I'm pretty sure they'd change if the situation would be the other way around. My boss is also incredibly frustrated with the situation. So he gave me contacts of his friend who happens to be a family lawyer, who agreed to help me out at a discounted rate as he owes my boss a few favors. He sees why courts take that long and will try his best to make sure divorce is granted. He also works as no win, no fee, and believes we can win the case and get Richard to cover the outstanding fees. And most importantly, no, I have not been paying child support to him and was not instructed to. The bit of claiming the child is mine as his mistress is his surrogate can be a bit complicated, but Mr. Lawyer, who I now owe a beer to, said courts can't make me pay or accept it since there is no evidence of any agreement. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for making a scene in public? My boyfriend and I were vacuuming the car in the gas station. He asked to see his phone, and when I handed it to him a few seconds later, he puts the vacuum literally on my face. Literally right next to my lips. Not even a full inch away from my lips. I freak out and try to smack his phone out of his hand and scream WTF. He tells me it's a joke, and how I'm overreacting and yelling in public. I won't lie, I've been feeling sick for the past couple days, so I've been semi-emotional. So I started crying because all I can think about is that nasty thing that never gets washed. It has been vacuuming up BS literally being on my face. My boyfriend has stated I've created an issue, and how he would never act like that. How it was a joke and how he will only be serious with me from now on. How he was just trying to make a funny TikTok. How he can't joke with me. I feel like an A now. Did I overreact? Am I the a-hole? Edit. I got my booster a couple days ago and have been having a rough time. Like laying on a cold tile floor to snap out of my dizzy/nausea and fever. I've been having bad headaches. It's made me semi-emotional because I've just been feeling like crap. And it's been super hard on me. Today was supposed to be getting fresh air and trying to feel better. Not that it's any excuse for me reacting the way I did. I just wanted to explain why I was semi-emotional already. Edit number 2. He wants to post it. And honestly, I don't have the energy to argue. So if you see it on TikTok, don't like it, please. Not stay home. You didn't laugh. It wasn't a joke. It was a joke is what a-holes say when they called out for their a-holery. Yeah, you always say something completely awful is a joke. But I'm never laughing. That's kind of a red flag that you guys are incompatible. It's okay. Some people enjoy stupid physical pranks and they are welcome to enjoy each other's company. But there's no reason you have to put up with it. Yep, if this is a pattern, it's time to say bye-bye. Perhaps do it on camera with a sick burn and put it on TikTok. See how he likes it. Not stay home, mainly because I hate TikTok. Also, sick or not, ew, that hose is disgusting. It was so dirty. Not stay home. It's only a joke if both people think it's funny. His response should have been, oops, sorry. I was trying to be funny and joking, but I can see it missed the mark. Really sorry. Instead, he doubled down and got defensive. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife that she should stop constantly expecting appreciation and just get on with her job of being a stay-at-home mom? I, 36 male, work full-time and my wife, 32 female, is a stay-at-home mom looking after our 2-year-old twins. When we got married, we both agreed that my wife would be a stay-at-home mom, especially since we don't have any family/grandparents nearby. We were both in agreement, and my wife made it clear she wanted to enjoy seeing our kids grow up, as we don't plan on having any more. I make a good wage, so we are comfortable. I don't give my wife any spending limits. Obviously, we discuss big purchases, so she is free to buy herself things. I make sure she has access to money and she takes care of everything around the house. I work from home and a typical day for me is 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Once I finish work, I go and spend time with the twins while my wife makes dinner. We put them to bed together and my wife usually clears up in the kitchen. She's great at her job, and the house is spotless. I'm happy with this arrangement, and I thought my wife was too. Recently, she has been coming to me and saying that she feels burned out, unappreciated, and taken for granted. I asked if I could do anything to help, and she said that it would be nice if I did something now and again to show that I appreciated her. Like buying her favorite bar of chocolate when I go to the shop or something small, just a gesture of appreciation. I'll admit that I didn't do this purely because I'm not in the habit, to be honest. We recently had a massive argument because my wife got completely fed up with being treated like a servant. She basically said that her working hours are 5 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week, and that she feels like I take her for granted. I told her that I understand it's a tough job, but we both get on with our respective roles. I never ask her to thank me for making money. I think it's cringeworthy. I get on with my job because I have to provide for my family, whereas she wants presents and treats for doing her job. I essentially said this to her, and now I'm wondering if I'm the a-hole. Looking after kids and house is tiring, and she does work hard and takes care of everything. But at the same time, do I need to thank her on bended knee and buy her things just for doing her job? Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. You're the a-hole. Jesus Christ. It's really too much to ask to occasionally buy your wife a bar of chocolate or say thank you. It sounds like she is working harder than you, but that isn't even the point. Appreciating her and showing her you love her is part of being a decent husband. If you're a robot who doesn't need appreciation, that doesn't mean she has to be too. You're the a-hole. I have 3-year-old twins and a new baby. I've been a mother every waking and sleeping minutes of the day for just over 3 years, not including a 9-month pregnancy with 2 babies that equaled 9 months of illness, sickness, and a broken body. Your wife is working all the time. You get to clock off at 5 and you don't even have to travel to work. Your wife not only keeps 2 small humans alive, your wife not only keeps the house in, as you say, pretty excellent condition, your wife not only cooks and keeps on top of food prep / buying, etc. Your wife not only drives everywhere to get things done, but she does this every day for 2 years without asking anything from you. Then the moment she does, the moment she opens up to you about how she feels, you dismiss her feelings and tell her you won't even help her feel a little appreciated? Well, news freaking flash. You get the feeling of appreciation, a job well done every time you make money, every time you please coworkers or clients, every day you keep your job. 2-year-olds crap and piss and eat and cry and laugh. No one stops to tell her or even gesture that your wife is a freaking superhero, like every stay-at-home parent. Buy her a chocolate bar and some flowers, then use them to knock sense into yourself. Edit to add, if you are a stay-at-home parent and you read this comment and say you don't agree because you feel appreciated by your children and infants, then that's great. Really, it is. But this woman doesn't, and she opened up to her husband about her feelings and he dismissed them. You're the a-hole. It's amazing. It's like your wife wants to be treated like a wife and partner instead of an incubator / nanny / housekeeper. Your wife is telling explicitly what she needs. She needs you to show her that she's appreciated. You are told, in a variety of ways at your job, that you are appreciated. I have no doubt. Your wife expecting that low bar to be met is reasonable. To note, nannies and housekeepers get told thank you and get bought special recognition rewards at times. Literally everyone gets thank yous. Opie gets shown and shows gratitude at work daily. He is treating his wife worse than he treats his most hated coworker. Everyone deserves recognition and appreciation. You're the a-hole. Correction, her hours are not 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Her hours are 24/7. You don't get a break from being a mom, and you seem not to realize how exhausting it actually is. As a stay-at-home mom myself, let me tell you something. A lack of appreciation is equal to a lack of intimacy. I pack my significant other's lunch. I get a thank you. He sees me doing laundry or dishes, he says thank you. Is it every single time? No, but it's enough that I know, hey, he actually does appreciate what I do for him. And guess what? When I feel appreciated and cared for, it makes me want to do more for him. Why can't you run her a hot bubble bath? Why can't you get her a snack or flowers? Why can't you do the dishes or cook every once in a while? She keeps that house spotless, so when you come home you can relax and not lift a finger. When does she get a break? Does she ever get to sleep in? Does she get even an hour alone a day? Edit. Okay, you can all stop tearing me a new a-hole now. I get it. I do get to relax at the weekends, whereas my wife usually does her normal routine and gets on top of the cleaning, etc. Just for the record, I do thank her for everything she does. I say thank you all the time, but I understand that this may not be her love language. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my side of the story? My husband, 35, and I, 32, have been married for 2 years. Well, we are very happy. When our relationship first started about 4 years ago, it resulted with a friendship ending. We had a mutual friend, Mary. She knew my husband Carl before I did. She introduced us. I knew she had a crush on Carl, but he had no romantic interest in her. I also had a crush on him, and he did and does have a romantic interest in me. I asked Mary if she would have a problem with us going out, and she said no. She actually encouraged the relationship, at first. After our first date, Carl and I found out that Mary had been going around to everyone she knew saying that we went behind her back, and that I stole her boyfriend. Our close friends knew she was lying because they knew Carl and Mary had never been in a relationship. But people who didn't know me immediately believed Mary, and in turn repeated the untrue story to all the people they knew. Now 4 years later, I still occasionally hear the untrue story. My husband and I don't go out of our way to tell the people the story, but if we hear someone talking about the lie, we will correct them. Recently, a really good friend of ours confronted us and said we should stop telling our side of the story. When I asked him why, He said, Mary's still really hurting over this. It makes her feel even worse when people find out she's lying. It would be kinder if people didn't know. Honestly, I don't care what the kinder thing would be. I don't want Mary to hurt more, but I don't think it's fair that we should be expected to hold our tongue when people spread lies about us. Am I the a-hole? What? Not the a-hole. I get that she's hurt, but that's no excuse to run around and spread lies. Your friend's request is absolutely ridiculous. I don't even get her being hurt by this point. It has been years, and she's still acting like she was wronged in some way. The friend needs to stop cuddling her and recommend professional help instead of scolding Opie for telling the truth. Not stay home. Mary should stop lying if she doesn't want to get hurt for being called out for lying. Mary's ruining the couple's reputation. Defend it because it's annoying how it affects your relationship with friends. But honestly, I would cut out anyone who believes Mary and start with a new group of friends because this is too juvenile for my liking. Not stay home. If she didn't want you to correct the lie, she shouldn't have told it. Or considering people are still asking, be telling it. Personally, I would be considering terminating the friendship with Mary, given she is clearly trying to undermine you and paint you as the homewrecker. Oh, the friendship was over 4 years ago. As soon as I heard the lies she was telling, I ended it. Initially, I thought we may be able to reconcile, but when I heard what she was telling people, I knew it was over. Am I the a-hole for kicking my mother-in-law's guest out of my wedding? Long story short, I, male 31, have been with my now wife for 3 years in total, and we got married days ago. I love my in-laws. However, some of them clearly don't like me for some reason. My mother-in-law tends to be mean and controlling. Although she never say anything bad to me directly, her behavior's the issue. Mother-in-law and most of the family are in close relationship with my wife's ex-husband. He was out of the country for a year or so, but I noticed he was being invited to family events, /birthdays, /family trips. Me and my wife just decided to not go because of how awkward it was. It's awful. I haven't bonded well with my nieces and nephews as they talk about the ex instead of me. I don't hang out with wife's brothers nor do any family stuff with them because the ex has taken over. He always either ignores me or insults me to my face, says he's times 10 better financially than me. I talked to my mother-in-law about this and she firmly shut me down, saying it's her house and it's her life. She invites whoever she wants, period. Before the wedding, I discovered my mother-in-law sent a secret invitation to her former son-in-law. I told her no, but she argued about it. My wife and I put our foot down, and that's when mother-in-law stepped back. At our wedding, I saw her, father-in-law, coming with her former son-in-law. I was in shock, so I pulled them aside and asked why they brought him, that he needed to leave because I didn't want him in my wedding. Mother-in-law argued that it's her guest. Family don't need invitation. I reminded her it's my wedding, then I asked the guy to leave. They jumped to defend him, but I insisted, telling them they can leave as well. Mother-in-law called me insecure, controlling jerk, and her daughter should call off the wedding right then. When my wife agreed with me, they screamed at her talking about me mistreating her. My parents weren't pleased by that. My mother-in-law left and the others followed. We are not speaking right now, and they have been getting berated by the family for kicking out their guests out of spite and disrespect towards the family, and how that affected their relationship with their former son-in-law. Now for the top comments. Not day hall. Your in-laws are out of line, but I'm very glad your wife has your back. Sounds like you will be hanging out with your side of the family more and the ex can have the selfish side. Out of line? They're out of their minds. Right, and the ex too. That is the kind of stuff that happens in movies. I half believe they expected the ex to proclaim his love during the wedding and the bride to run off with him and leave Opie at the altar. Nope, not so much. My mother-in-law didn't like me. She and my sister-in-law started to invite my husband's ex-wife to family functions. He told them in no uncertain terms he did not want ex-wife there. They still continued to invite her, so we stopped going to family functions. Not the a-hole. He wasn't just their guest, but your wife's ex-husband. That's extremely inappropriate, no matter how you cut it. Was he planning on objecting to the wedding to declare his love for her, or was it just to ruin the event for the both of you by him being there? Either way, it was meant to intentionally hurt you. Obviously, they're hoping his constant presence with their support will bring their daughter around. But now it looks like they could lose their daughter over this. Cut out anyone who takes their side after knowing the facts. Their guests. Well, you're all my guests. So, GTFO. Hahaha. Seriously, who attends their ex's wedding without permission? Not day-hall. First, your wedding, your choice. Second, it's highly inappropriate for an ex to attend their former partner's wedding without being invited by their former partner. Third, they were told that he was not welcome. They have no right to surprise you with this. And what about your very clear, very expected reaction? I'm sorry they like the ex so much. Unfortunately, I doubt that will change. Best accept it now. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not inviting my child-free sister/brother-in-law to my child-friendly wedding? My 27 female sister is the third born out of 4 siblings, with me being the youngest, and we have 2 older brothers. Both our brothers have kids, and I have 2 kids of my own. And whenever our sister finds out there's a baby on the way, she acts like it's the worst thing in the world. She doubled down on this with me, because I'm a woman. Once the kids were born, she wouldn't let them call her auntie, which, okay. Said she'd never willingly babysit, which no one ever asked her to do. Then she started making comments which she presented as jokes, like calling the kids leeches and bastards. She won't interact with any of her, 7 total, nieces and nephews. She attends events with them there, but ignores them the whole time except for when she complains that she came out to talk to adults, not deal with little kids. Her husband is the same. I'm getting married. I want my kids there, as well as my nieces/nephews and a handful of other kids from both families. I also don't want my sister moaning about being surrounded by kids, as they probably make up about 1/4 to 1/3 of the guest list. So my sister isn't invited. However, I figured I had to have a conversation with my sister and brother-in-law to tell them what I'm planning, so they aren't blindsided when the invites go out in a few weeks. Sister is treating this as an affront. She is highly offended that I won't be inviting her, and that she was being excluded over her lifestyle. I said it's not the lifestyle, it's the attitude. She's saying I've not even given her a chance, and that as I was her bridesmaid, she should at least get an invite, and has said I'm being a huge a-hole for excluding her from my wedding over this. I said that if she wasn't such an a-hole to the kids, then I wouldn't need to exclude her in the first place. Dad agrees that I should invite who I want, but Mom sides with my sister, saying it's unfair I'm excluding her, and that she should be invited. Plus, it's not like she'll do anything, and the worst thing she could possibly do, given her history, is tell another adult that she isn't a fan of all the kids there. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Probably not going to be a popular take. Yes, you can invite anyone you want to your wedding, so you have a right to not invite your sister. Yes, your sister has been the a-hole around your family, but that's not what you're asking. You're asking if you are the a-hole by not inviting your sister to your wedding. And the answer for me is yes. Look, she clearly has major issues around children and has been the a-hole toward you and your families, for sure. But to me, it seems you're not inviting her more out of revenge, to hurt her back for her hurtful comments. As your mother says, what exactly is the worst thing that can happen? Your sister witches to other guests? What I think you should have done. Pulled her aside and told her that while she's entitled to her personal opinions about children, you're going to have to insist she not express any of that during your own wedding. Ask her if she can do that. If she says yes, great. If she makes a fuss, say you insist and those are the conditions. Alert the wedding planner beforehand to be on the lookout for this, so that the wedding planner can deal with your sister if necessary. Then enjoy the wedding. Unless you're leaving something out, like she never listens and always creates scenes, I think it's wrong to preemptively assume she won't be able to control herself and not invite your own sister to your wedding when you were her bridesmaid. Wow. Usually, this subreddit assumes that will happen and calls anything about not inviting anyone to a wedding, not the a-hole. Funny how this time around they flock to defend. Gentle, everyone sucks here. I'm landing with your mom. It's not like the two of you have a bad relationship by the sounds of it. You were her bridesmaid after all. So I feel the reason for denying someone an invitation like this should be a bit stronger than they'll probably make a comment about a kid or two. It doesn't sound like you actually tried to sit them down about their behavior either during any of this. Maybe give them a small prep talk on how this behavior is a real bummer and you won't have it at your wedding. Don't get me wrong, you have every right to invite anyone you want to your wedding. But I do feel the majority of people would agree that this is a pretty shitty reason to exclude your sister. Should I invite someone who frequently insults my kids, refuses to acknowledge them as family, and calls them leeches and insulted me when I was pregnant to my wedding? Fixed the title. Not a-hole. Seriously, like, why the surprised Pikachu face about not being invited / being asked to be in the wedding party? The whole "you were in my bridal party" sounds like expected reciprocation to me. She either doesn't show up to a child-friendly events or complains to anyone who will listen. Why does Opie need to give her the chance to turn her down? She's saving herself stress and hurt feelings about her own wedding. I know if I'm planning a party, I'm not inviting people that are going to be horrible to my kids for just existing. Why would this be different? Next story is titled, "Am I the a-hole for quitting to be in my sister's bridal party?" I love my sister to pieces, but she's turning out to be a real bridezilla. She's at her wedding right at the end of our semesters, and when my mom and I tried to tell her that it wasn't the best idea, she said she could handle doing everything for the wedding and school. Well, she can't. She's been asking me to do tons of things to help her, which I'm okay with, but I think she forgets I also have school, a newborn, and work. Anyways, she asked me to choreograph part of her surprise dance at her wedding, and I agreed. But then my projects, essays, and tests have gotten in the way. I do have some of it done, more than half, but I'm busy. We had a small rehearsal today. All of us wore masks, and most of us are vaccinated. And when it got to my part of the dance, I apologetically told her I didn't have the whole song yet. She went off on me in front of the bridal party about how the wedding is coming up soon, and I had one job and how I could do this to her. It might have been how exhausted I am, but I threw in her face that I found her caterer, did her invites, made her guest book, found her bridesmaids' dresses, I'm doing hair and makeup for everyone the day off, and so many other things. She played a victim, saying she was so stressed and I wasn't being helpful with my attitude, and I told her it was her fault for setting the date so soon. I ended the fight telling her I would finish the choreography and still do her hair and makeup. But I was done with the bridal party because I have a life to take care of, and I'm done with her bridezilla attitude. My parents and husband agree with me, but the rest of the bridal party told me I was an a-hole and I should understand how stressful a wedding is. I get that. I did everything for my own wedding, but I gave myself enough time so I wouldn't be a pain in the ass for everyone. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. You are doing your best. She's out of line. She's making it harder on herself. Weddings are special, but idealizing the process is just not healthy in my opinion. Dance isn't perfectly choreographed. Who cares? Becomes a funny story. No bloody dance is fine. Why the hell is there even a choreographed dance? No one is going to care if it's there or not. Sure, that sort of thing can be fun / nice when it's reflective of the couple, but she isn't even the one choreographing it. How can a bride expect so much of everyone? Not the a-hole. She doesn't get to unload on you because she set her expectations unreasonably. The rest of the bridal party just doesn't want to deal with her, and as with you gone, they get to be the cannon fodder. Exactly. Her parents and her husband know the kind of stress her sister is inflicting on her, but the bridal party? They probably want a free ride without having to lift a single finger for the wedding. If Opie does hair and makeup, then they don't have to worry about it because I bet Opie's doing it for free. Not the a-hole. I get so tired of this BS about how stressful a wedding is. A wedding is only extremely stressful if you make it that way by building it up in your head into this be-all and all event that has to be picture perfect and flawless, or else you'll just die. I'm not sure why people do that to themselves, or why others go along with that nonsense. But I am sure you are not obligated to put up with your sister's verbal abuse and thoughtless selfish demands on your time. You are kind to still be willing to do the choreography and her hair and makeup, because she obviously doesn't appreciate your time and talents. The rest of the bridal party can pick up the slack themselves, instead of trying to avoid that by shaming you into doing more than you have the time or desire to do. Now for the last story. Would I be the a-hole if I told my parents that unless they contribute to the wedding, they are uninvited? I always had a bad relationship with my parents. They were never good at nurturing. They were disinterested in us unless they could get something through us. I'm getting married in May to the love of my life. When we started planning for the wedding, my parents made it clear that they didn't have the money nor the intention to pay for the wedding in any way. My fiancé and his parents are paying for about 80% of it, which is the religious ceremony, the venue, with table decorations and all, the food and the music, and I'm putting the last 20%, which is gonna be transportation with buses from the nearest big city to the venue, the photographer, the party favors, and my wedding dress / shoes / hair / makeup. I don't have a lot of money either. I just got back to work after a year being unemployed because of COVID. I don't have any money to waste. I'm too proud to go to my in-laws for help as they already pay for more than their share of the wedding. They shouldn't shoulder my part as well. Fortunately, I found a great charity that helps brides like me that can't put thousands of dollars into one dress. They rent wedding dresses that are donated to them for very cheap. I'll only have to pay for the adjustments. A friend of mine agreed to do my hair and makeup as a wedding present. That saves me a lot of money, and it's a huge relief for me. On Friday, my sister called me to tell me that my parents have bought clothes for my wedding, and that they have been bragging and showing it off to her. She told me it's really expensive, over-the-top clothes with shoes and jewelry to go with it, and that they said that overall, it had cost them close to $2,000. That made me angry, because they really didn't need to spend that much money on it. And if they had that money to spare, I could have used it for the wedding. And maybe I'm vain, but it bothers me that my parents are going to be better dressed than me on my wedding. On a deeper level, since they obviously do have the extra money, it hurts me that they didn't want to help with the wedding. I feel rejected and neglected, like I've always been with them. I decided that I don't want to put up with that anymore. I want them to participate financially to the wedding, even if it's just a small amount. My budget for party favors is $300, and I want them to pay for that. And if they say they can't, then I don't want them to come to my wedding. They were never really family anyway. My family are my siblings and my friends, and my soon-to-be husband. I would like to have them there, but under my terms, not theirs. I don't need them, and it might be petty, but if they refuse to pay, I will feel vindicated because they would have wasted all this money in outfits they aren't going to wear, because they won't have the occasion. So, would I be the a-hole? You're the a-hole. It's your right to not invite your parents or anyone to your wedding. It's not your right to demand your parents or anyone to financially contribute to a wedding that you're choosing to have. Figure out whether you want your parents there at all, but leave the paying for your wedding out of it. You put it much better than I would have. It sounds from the post like OP has a very complicated, to put it mildly, relationship with their parents. It's fine to go low or no contact. But it's not okay to make the wedding invitation contingent on a financial contribution. Either invite them or don't. Especially since the pot calling the kettle black. Having their affection contingent on what they can gain is exactly what she said she hated about her parents. I understand she's stressed about money and hurt by her parents' behavior and excuses, but she needs to deal with her feelings without being spoiled. You're the a-hole. If you can't afford an expensive wedding, don't have one. Stop relying on other people to pay for the lifestyle you can't afford. My in-laws want the expensive wedding. He is their only child, which is why they are paying for most of it. I have budgeted the $300 and I can come up with them on my own. I want this as a gesture that they care enough about me to contribute, or if they don't care, then they don't come. You're the a-hole. It truly doesn't matter what the details are. Your parents don't automatically owe it to you to pay for your wedding because they bought new outfits to wear. If you can't afford the wedding you want, without assuming everyone in your family owes you, then you downsize or wait and save, like the vast majority of people. Grow up already and stop acting like the wedding is a debt owed to you.